Okay, so tonight I just wanted to speak a little bit about 1 Corinthians chapter 2, which I believe all the Bible studies should be going over this week. Don't worry if you haven't gotten to it yet for the Thursday night Bible study people. It's okay. Maybe you'll just have a little bit more to talk about tomorrow night after listening to the Lord speak to us tonight. Maybe we can all read the title together. It's on the back side of your song sheet if you haven't flipped already. How about let's read it together. Treasuring our human spirit to become spiritual men, to receive the spiritual things. Okay, so it's kind of a mouthful of a title, but there's basically three important parts. Treasuring our human spirit. This is what I would probably focus on in the middle of the outline. To become spiritual men. We'll talk about what spiritual men are later. And then to receive spiritual things. This is probably the first item we'll talk about. The title is in reverse, but the importance is in a certain order. So maybe we can all read together Roman numeral 1, the first one. Things which eye has not seen, ear has not heard, and which have not come up in man's heart. Things which God has prepared for those who love him. Okay, so things which eye has not seen, ear has not heard, which have not come up in man's heart. These are the things that 1 Corinthians is filled with. You may read it and it seems like a book of problems, but actually this book is filled with these things that God has prepared for us. The only question is, what are these things? And for this point, I've listed 6 alphas underneath, which I won't get into tonight, but I put it there as a reference for you all. Basically, as you go verse by verse, it becomes increasingly clear what these things are. And to make a long story short, these things are just Christ. In this Bible study, in this book, we just want to get Christ. And specifically, we want to get the riches of Christ. One of the points in Ephesians chapter 3, it says the unsearchable riches of Christ as the gospel. So that's what the Apostle Paul is trying to deliver through this letter. The unsearchable riches. There are a lot of different aspects of Christ that God has prepared. God has made ready so that we can enjoy and experience. The only problem is, if we check with our Christian experience, it doesn't seem like God is rich all the time. And at this point, I'd like to ask just 4 quick questions. I think they speak to my experience, and I feel like it speaks to a lot of people's experience. You don't have to raise your hand or answer anything, but I just want you to consider before I get into the rest of the speaking. Okay, so there are 4 questions that I wrote down. Question number 1, has God ever felt far away? Question number 2, has the Christian life ever felt boring? Question number 3, does the Bible ever seem too abstract and too hard to apply? And then number 4, do the hardships and the joys, both hardships and joys, in the human life seem more real than God? And I think if we consider in our experience, at some point in our Christian life, whether it's been, just a couple days maybe, or I don't know however many years, we've all experienced one of these 4 items at some point. And it's very normal on the one hand, but it's also not normal. It shouldn't be that way, but yet we do experience it. And why is that? Why is it that we experience God not being rich when it clearly says in the Word that He is rich? The unsearchable riches of Christ, and yet they're very finite to me. Why is that? So we'll get into that tonight. That's what tonight is about, okay? Hopefully by the end of the night, you'll have an answer to that question. Okay, so let's read Roman numeral 2, the second bold point. God is spirit. Those who worship Him must worship in spirit and truthfulness. So this point begins to answer the question, why is it that, God is sometimes not real or the Christian life is sometimes boring? God is spirit. And if we know anything about spirit, is that it's immaterial. We can't see, we can't touch, we can't hear, we can't smell. None of our senses is able to substantiate God. And yet in this verse lies a very big secret. The Lord Jesus tells us very plainly, how do we contact God? And it's the lowercase spirit at the end of the verse. God is spirit, but those who worship him, those who contact him, have to contact in spirit. And this spirit is not referring to God the Spirit, but it's referring to a part of man called the human spirit that was made to contact, to receive, and to contain God. Okay, so just as a quick rundown, I drew 3 circles on the board as an illustration. Okay, some of you may have seen this. Some of this may be new to some of you. But anyway, according to, I didn't write the verse reference down. According to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 23, man is composed of 3 parts. The outermost part is, we're used to this. This is our physical body. All right, body. The second part in the middle ring, this is what is called our soul. This is who we are. It's the seat of our personality. And it's composed of 3 main areas, which are our mind. I'll just do this. Our thoughts. We're here to learn about things in school. We have a major. We have imaginations. That's our mind. We have emotions, or I hope we have emotions. I hope everyone has feelings and not, we're not cold, lifeless people. So we have feelings, we have emotions, and the last one is we have a will. We have a decision-making faculty. So these are the sort of the 3 areas of our soul, and then the last part is the spirit that is mentioned in the verse, our human spirit. So this is what man looks like. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, it says that a believer can be in 3 conditions. How about let's just say that, in 3 conditions. And they correspond to the 3 parts of man. Okay, so with that, maybe we can read Roman numeral 3 together. Corinthians reveals clearly that a believer may be one of 3 kinds of men: a spiritual man, a soulish man, or a fleshy and fleshly man. Okay. So maybe it's easiest if I just go from, I know the outline is from in to out, but maybe it's easiest if I go from out to in. So a fleshly person, that's a person who lives according to the desires or the cravings of the fallen human body. And I think we all kind of know what this looks like, but just as an example, in the New Testament, Paul describes a group of people historically, and he says whose God is their stomach. So they followed how they lived was according to their stomach. That can be an example of a fleshly person. And a believer can be like this. This is not talking about unbelievers. This is talking about Christians who can live like this. Okay? And then the second one is a soulish man or a soulish believer. And this is a person who lives by their mind, emotion, and will. So, when certain situations come up, maybe I'm going to reason my way out of it. Or certain things come up and I just react in my emotions. That's what it means to live as a soulish person. And then lastly, a spiritual man. This is a person who lives by their spirit, who lives by the God-created part that can, again, contact, receive, and contain God. So these 3 terms, a spiritual man, a soulish man, and a fleshly man, this is not to say that a spiritual man does not have a body, or a soulish man does not have a spirit, or a fleshly man has neither of the other 2 parts. But this is just referring to which part of their being is the most prominent. When you contact such a believer, what kind of flavor do you get? For some people, it's you just get the sense that this is flesh. I think for most of us, we're in the middle ring, right? Someone contacts us, it's, oh wow, this person is so smart. John, you're so smart. Or, Matt, why are you so moody all the time? He's not, but I'm just using it as an example. Right? So this is largely where we are. And then we all know people who when we contact them, we just feel like we're in the presence of God. It's like God is talking to us directly when we touch these kinds of people. And these people are spiritual men. Okay? So, of course, we're not all, I think I would consider myself still pretty young. We're not at the point where we would say, I'm a spiritual man all the time. And that's okay. But what I wanted to impress y'all with is the fact that we actually have a spirit. Okay? There was, in my Bible study, where's Manfred? Okay, yeah. We were talking, and Manfred just brought up that in popular culture, right, the soul and the spirit are, I forget what word you used. It was like synonymous or interchangeable. And I would say not just in popular culture, but in many Christian circles, the soul and the spirit are the same. And it may seem, it's not a big deal. It's, they're both immaterial. We can't really touch either of them. What's the big deal? But the danger with that is, if we refer back to John 4:24, God is spirit. God is spirit. And those who worship him must worship in spirit. It does not say that we worship him in our mind. And it does not say we worship him in our emotions. But the problem with considering the soul and the spirit to be the same is that a lot of Christians may fall into I would maybe even call it a trap of trying to think God or to logically reason about God, and then end up realizing that God is not logical, and so therefore God cannot exist. Or to try to feel God and try to, anyway, import God into our emotions, but that is not how God presented to us the way that we contact him. And so, again, I wanted to just impress you all that we have a spirit. This spirit was created by God to contact God. The first word of the title that I picked was treasuring, and treasuring's not anywhere in the rest of the outline. But I hope you all have this sense coming away from tonight that our spirit is something valuable and is something precious. When God created the universe, he ranks our spirit with the heavens and the earth. That's how important our spirit is to God. And so it should be just as important to us. Just as a quick example, I was thinking how to illustrate treasuring our spirit, and I had this silly example of where when we look at really young children, at a certain point, they come to their life where they realize they have hands. And so they just walk around and they're like, maybe not walk, but they're just looking at their hands. They're like, what are these things? They're attached to me. I never knew they were there. And maybe when they were younger, they were, walking around or crawling around, and then they hit something. And it's like, ow, what is that? But they don't know they have hands, so it's just like the pain is just somewhere. They don't know where it is, or maybe they hit something with their hand and a ball comes rolling into their view, and it's just like, where did the ball come from? Like, what happened there? And then eventually they realize they have hands, so they can grab things, they can hit things, and anyway, it's really fascinating for them to finally realize, oh, I have these things that are attached to me that I can use to do things, right? Well, that's kind of like our spirit. I think a lot of Christians, I reflect on my own experience. When I was younger in my Christian life, and I haven't been a Christian for that long, but a lot of times contacting God would be hit or miss. That's kind of like the baby, like, oh, I hit Josh. Like, what is that? How am I contacting Josh right now? And then, I want to contact Josh again. It's just like, oh, but I don't know, like, what am I supposed to do? Right? And I feel like that's how we approach God, without knowing that we have a specific organ to contact him. And so it just becomes a really hit or miss Christian life. Why is it that sometimes we are really on fire for the Lord, and then a week later it dissipated, and it doesn't seem like there's any way to retrieve that love for the Lord, or that desire for the Lord? It's because we didn't realize that we have something in us that was made to touch God. And we can choose to contact God anytime using this right organ. So we don't have to be these babies that don't realize that they have hands. We can be the ones that are fascinated with it, the ones that are exploring with it. And I hope that's what you do during your time in school, in college, is it's an opportunity to explore your hands, your spirit. There's so many opportunities to, in a sense, pick things up, hit it against something. And the more we use it, the more we exercise it. It's like a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets. And eventually, our spirit becomes the strongest part of our being. And then that's when we're spiritual men. Spiritual men are not, like these floaty, angelic people who seem holier than thou. They're really just people whose spirit has been so developed, their spiritual muscle is so strong that it's the dominant part in their being. And so their living is governed by not what they think is rational and not what they feel, but it's governed by the sense that they have in their spirit. Okay. So I hope you all are impressed, because I was impressed, again, studying that. We have a spirit. Like that song says, there's a river flowing in my spirit. Anyway, okay. Maybe we can read the fourth Roman numeral right now at this point. Move, act, and live in our spirit, that we may enjoy Christ as everything to us. Okay. So in Romans 8:4, the first verse that's referenced there, it says that those who walk according to the Spirit mind the things of the Spirit. So if our Christian walk is according to our human spirit, the result is that we're able to receive the things of the Spirit, which are the things that we talked about in Roman numeral 1. That's kind of like our goal. We want to experience the unsearchable riches of Christ, and the way to do that is through our human spirit. So then the question, I think a very obvious question is, how do we use our spirit? If this is a muscle, how do we, and it kind of like, how do we work it out? And it's not like a physical muscle. It's not like a hand in the sense that I can see it and I can flex it, right? So I think a good maybe analogy is using our mind. When we want to exercise our mind, we don't flex it, but we set it to do something. So for example, we think about problems that we need to do for homework. We imagine things. We study. These are the things that we use or that we do to exercise our mind. So in the same way, there are things that we can do to exercise our spirit and to, work it out. And these things include praying. A very common Christian practice is praying, reading the Bible. What we did tonight, fellowshipping with other believers. In a little bit, you'll have an opportunity maybe to speak a little something to your neighbor or to all the students here about something that the Lord touched you with. That is an exercise of the Spirit. Confessing your sins is an exercise of the Spirit. But I think the one that I wanted to touch a little bit upon is calling on the Lord. And in chapter 1, verse 2, which we covered 2 weeks ago, it says that Christians call on his name in every place. And the great thing about calling on the Lord is that you can call in any place. You can call at any time. You can call with anyone. And you can call in any circumstance. So there's really no restriction time or space, or however you want to try to limit the opportunities to call on the Lord, there's no opportunity, there's no moment that's not an opportunity to call on the Lord. You can call on the Lord at any time, and you don't have to compose. You don't have to come up with an eloquent prayer. It's as simple as, Lord Jesus. Like in the third stanza of the song, calling, oh, Lord Jesus. That is a way to exercise our spirit. And hopefully, next time you all of a sudden, you don't know how, you ended up in a chair in a classroom and your proctor is handing you your midterm or your final, and you didn't really study for it. That's a great opportunity to call on the name of the Lord. Exercise your spirit a little. Maybe you even want to call the whole time. Exercise your spirit a lot. Anyway, human life is just, there's a lot of opportunity to exercise this spiritual muscle. And calling is one of the great ways, I feel like one of the best ways to exercise our spirit. Anyway, so I hope you all are impressed. We have a spirit. We have a spirit. We can contact God. And the result of that is that God becomes real. Christ becomes rich. The Bible is fresh to us. And the Christian life is a life that's meaningful and worth living. Anyway, you all have a spirit. Let's exercise our spirit this school year.